silence is not always peace. Sometimes it is just submission. Imagine a body that has lost the ability to feel pain. You might think this is a superpower, to walk through fire without flinching. But pain is the body's alarm system. Without it, you leave your hand on a hot stove until it burns to the bone. You break a bone and keep walking until the leg collapses. The person who never complains is like this body. By silencing the alarm, they do not escape the injury. They only guarantee the damage will be permanent. We often confuse the absence of conflict with the presence of peace. In our modern culture, we romanticize the chill person, the one who goes with the flow, the one who says, "It's fine," before the sentence is even finished. But there is a profound difference between the stoic, who accepts what they cannot change, and the repressor, who pretends not to care about what hurts them. This video is not about the person who has found enlightenment. It is about the person who has lost their voice. It is about the psychology of the nice person who has turned their existence into a performance of agreeableness. If you are this person, your life has likely ceased to be a series of genuine interactions. Instead, it has become a calculation. You are no longer a participant in your own story. You are the editor, frantically cutting out every scene that might cause tension. You are a ghost in your own machine, surrounded by people who claim to love you. Yet you feel a haunting loneliness, because you know, deep down, that they love the mask, not the person suffocating behind it. How does this happen in real time? It begins with a mechanism we can call preemptive editing. Most people operate on a simple loop: stimulus, reaction, expression. Someone steps on their foot, they feel pain, they say, "Ouch, watch out." But for the chronic non-complainer, the circuit is rewired. Between the stimulus and the expression, you insert a massive, energy-draining filter. Someone disrespects your time. You feel the flash of irritation. But instantly, the filter engages. A rapid-fire internal monologue interrogates the feeling. Is this worth bringing up? If I say something, will they think I'm difficult? Maybe they're just having a bad day. I don't want to ruin the mood. By the time this mental trial concludes, the moment has passed. You smile and say, "No worries." This is not just a mental habit, it is an identity crisis. As the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung warned regarding the persona, the social mask we wear, the danger is that we eventually identify with the mask and forget who we are underneath. You become like water poured into a vase. You take the shape of your container. You take the shape of your partner's needs, your boss's demands, your family's expectations. But the body keeps the score. You cannot fool your nervous system. When you swallow a no, it doesn't dissolve. It sinks. It manifests as a tightness in the jaw, a chronic knot in the stomach, or a fatigue that sleep cannot fix. This is somatic dissonance. Your biology is screaming for boundaries while your psychology is whispering for submission. Nobody is born a doormat. This is a learned behavior, often forged in the fires of childhood adaptation. In developmental psychology, we look at the trade-off between authenticity and attachment. Dr. Gabor Mate often posits that when a child is forced to choose between being their true self, authenticity, and staying connected to their caregivers, attachment, they will always choose attachment. Survival depends on it. Perhaps you grew up in a home that was volatile. To survive, you learn to be low maintenance. You learn that having needs was synonymous with being a burden. Or perhaps you had parents who were fragile, parents who needed you to emotionally regulate them. Every time you expressed dissatisfaction, you were met with guilt, withdrawal, or anger. So you developed a superpower, the ability to scan a room and detect the emotional temperature instantly. You became a chameleon. The tragedy is summarized in a single realization. Your silence was not peace, it was the price of your ticket to be accepted. As you grew older, this survival strategy calcified into a personality trait. You developed a high tolerance for toxicity. Just as a callus forms on a hand to protect it from friction, your psyche formed a callus over your preferences. You stay in bad relationships, bad jobs, and bad friendships far longer than a healthy person would, because you have confused resilience with the ability to endure suffering without complaint. This leads to a dark internal labyrinth, the courtroom of self-invalidation. Inside your mind, there is a prosecutor who is ruthless against you and incredibly lenient toward everyone else. When someone hurts you, you immediately invoke what we might call toxic empathy. You intellectualize their bad behavior to avoid the discomfort of holding them accountable. You tell yourself, he didn't mean to yell, he's just stressed about work. Or, she forgot my birthday because she's overwhelmed. You understand the why of their behavior so well that you excuse the what. This is a form of self-abandonment. By rationalizing the disrespect of others, you are effectively acting as their defense attorney against your own pain. You become the shock absorber of your social circle. A car's shock absorbers take the brutal impact of the road so the passengers can have a smooth ride. You absorb the tension, the awkwardness, and the anger of others so the group remains harmonious. But eventually, the shock absorber wears out. This leads to a life lived in mute. You dampen your anger, yes, but you also dampen your joy. You cannot selectively numb emotions. When you numb the negative, you numb the positive. You end up living a beige existence, safe from conflict but divorced from vitality. Why is it so hard to just stop? Why does the idea of saying, "I didn't like that," feel life-threatening? Because for your brain, it is. We are familiar with the fight or flight response. But there is a fourth F, fawn. The fawn response, a term popularized by therapist Pete Walker, describes a survival instinct where the individual merges with the desires of the threat to avoid harm. It is appeasement. When you think about complaining, your amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up. It predicts a catastrophe. It whispers that if you set a boundary, you will be abandoned. This is the fallacy of security. You believe that if you are perfect, frictionless, and demandless, you will be safe. But this is a lie, as the Stoic philosopher Seneca wrote in his moral letters to Lucilius. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. You imagine that a single complaint will destroy a relationship. If a relationship is so fragile that it cannot withstand a single expression of your needs, it is not a relationship. It is a hostage situation. The healing process begins with a harsh truth. Being unable to complain does not make you a good person, it makes you a dishonest one. When you say yes when you mean no, you are lying. You are presenting a false version of yourself to the world. True intimacy requires the truth, and sometimes the truth is, "I am angry," or "this isn't working for me." We must deconstruct the idea that goodness equals compliance. A harmless person is not virtuous. They are merely harmless. Virtue requires the capacity for force and the wisdom to control it. You must be capable of showing your teeth in order for your smile to mean anything. The turning point is the constructive conflict. You must invite the risk of being disliked. You must experiment with the terrifying act of stating a preference, and then, this is the hardest part, sitting in the silence that follows without rushing to apologize. As you begin to practice this, the perspective shifts. You move from being a passive observer to an active guardian of your own territory. You realize that a complaint is not an attack, it is a notification. It is a signpost that says, "Here's where I end, and here is where you begin." The power of the limit lies in its calmness. You do not need to explode. In fact, people who never complain often eventually explode in rage because they have held it in for too long. The goal is to release the steam in small, controlled bursts. A simple, "I'm not comfortable with that," said with a steady voice, commands more respect than 1,000 silent resentments. This brings a new kind of peace, not the stagnant peace of the repressed lake, but the dynamic peace of a flowing river. You trust yourself. You trust that you can handle the friction. You trust that you can survive someone being upset with you. If you have watched this far, take this as your validation. Your frustration, your preferences, and your specific needs are not defects. They are the coordinates of your soul. They tell you who you are. You are not broken because you feel things deeply. You are not difficult because you have standards. The goal is not to become a chronic complainer who sees only faults. The goal is to become a person whose yes is gold because their no is iron. The world does not need more people who are silently suffering to keep the peace. The world needs people who are alive, real, and honest. Your voice is the tool that sculpts your reality. If you never use it, you will live in a world designed by everyone else. Stop surviving in the shadows of your own politeness. Speak your truth. It is time to turn on the light.